and welcome to another episode of Wellbeing at Work, a podcast by Workplace Options, a TELUS Health company. I'm Sarah Wood, Vice President and General Manager of Emerging Solutions at Workplace Options, and joining me today is clinical psychologist Marianne Khlat to discuss the psychological impact of doomscrolling in times of crisis and offer tips on how to stay informed without becoming overwhelmed. As heightened uncertainty persists across the Gulf region, many are understandably finding it hard to stay offline. Thoughts like, what's happening now? Am I safe? Is my family safe? Will the schools be open tomorrow? Can I still go to work? These are just some of the questions weighing on people's minds as they turn to their devices for the latest updates. But there's a fine line between staying informed and being consumed. As screen time continues to rise, many are finding this out firsthand. The more they scroll, the harder it is to relax, sleep, eat, or disconnect, placing a tremendous strain on their mental health. Now, to start us off, I was wondering, Marianne, if you could go into a bit more detail about the dangers or even the counterproductivity of doom scrolling during times of crisis. And how can people recognize when it's starting to take a toll on them?
Yeah, of course. Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really glad we're talking about this because it is something that I've seen come up a lot more, not just in my field of work, but even myself, friends, families around me, right? And before we start, I actually wanted to ask you a question. What would you believe is the amount of time that we spend on our screens, including social media?
That's a tough one, right? Because we
Yeah.
work, so we're in front of a screen at work. I think I have a tendency to want to underestimate it. I would guess maybe an hour to 2 hours a day people might spend on social media.
That's a good guess. But the average daily time spent on social media, at least in the UAE, is 2 hours and 57 minutes.
Wow.
Whereas the user spends is 3 hours and 55 minutes using the internet on a phone specifically.
Wow.
And
that's half of a workday.
Yeah, that is half of a workday. And actually, a more interesting fact is that UAE residents spend around 8.36 hours online every day, which is nearly 2 hours more than the global average of 6.58 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. So this was a good to know fact that I wanted to talk about before we go in. And before we talk about, the dangers or counterproductivity of doom scrolling, I want to take a moment about explaining what doom scrolling is. So doom scrolling in simple terms is basically when you keep refreshing your newsfeed or social media over and over again looking for updates. And even though nothing new is actually coming up or what you're seeing is distressing, you can't actually stop yourself from doing that. You feel like you have to keep checking. And what I really want to say and what I want people to know now is that if you've been glued to your phone lately, it makes complete sense. It's nothing wrong. It is a natural response for us in times of crisis, but we do need to understand that just because it makes sense, it doesn't mean it's helping us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I was going to say, I feel like it's very challenging too, because these social media platforms and the things on our phones are designed to keep us hooked and they want us to keep coming back. So it doesn't end, right? You can keep scrolling and there's no end to it.
Definitely. And you did ask the counterproductivity of doom scrolling during a crisis. And what is important to understand is that the brain doesn't distinguish between reading about a threat and actually experiencing it. So every alarming headline can trigger a stress response. Your heart rate starts to go up, your body tenses, your nervous system stays on high alert. And over time, this is very exhausting. You end up starting to feel more anxious and actually less informed than you would like to be. And here's something really important. Speed doesn't equal accuracy during a crisis. And there's a 2025 MIT analysis showing that conflict-related content spreads 6 times faster than verified news during a crisis period.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of what people are seeing first is often not the most reliable.
Mm-hmm.
And even more striking is that research from Oxford Reuters Institute found that an AI generated conflict content gets 340% more engagement than authentic news reporting. So people are drawn to the dramatic, the alarming, and algorithms show that.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure it's challenging too, because a lot of people, again, want that immediate
Yeah.
feed, right? And that
Mhm.
immediate information, that immediate dopamine hit from getting to get informed and getting to see that. So they're probably not often taking the time to cross-check and verify that this is in fact valid information, confirmed news sources, that sort of
Yeah,
thing.
definitely.
Now, you were talking about kind of that heightened body response. Would you say that that's how people could recognize when it's starting to take a toll on them? Are there things people could look out for that might be indicative that, hey, this is no longer helping me, this is actually starting to hurt me?
Yeah, it really is a very wide range and it can vary from person to person, family to family. It really depends on the situation. But what I would start with is asking ourselves, am I scrolling to feel informed or am I scrolling because I can't stop? So
Mm,
some signs to look out for is like trouble falling asleep or waking up at night, feeling irritable, on edge, or even emotionally numb. You're having difficulty concentrating on normal tasks. You're checking
mm,
your phone first thing in the morning because you've gotten out of bed and you are eager to see the news. And you're actually starting to feel worse after scrolling and not better, but you're still
mm,
going back. It's kind of almost like an addiction that starts to happen. Like, I can't
mhm,
stop. I know this is not good. I know this saddens me. This frustrates me. This makes me feel very bad, but I can't stop. I need to know. And
mhm,
with kids and teenagers specifically, we know from a 2025 Pew Research Center report that 46% of teenagers describe their social media use as almost constant. So when
mm,
there's a crisis and the content is scary and overwhelming, that near constant exposure really has a real impact.
mhm. Yeah, and children, again, with their brains not being fully developed, they're drawn to social media and doom
Yeah.
scrolling more so than adults can be, I'm sure.
And they might have a more difficult time understanding the difference between maybe AI generated content or false content. And they might not know how to approach us about it. And
Mhm.
it will stick in their mind and cause the same signs that we were discussing about feeling irritable, feeling on edge. So there may be changes of characters that we see in our children or in younger children and teenagers that might not make sense, but it could be due to the constant information and constant usage of social media.
Mhm. Now, for those who feel caught in that cycle of constantly looking for updates, constantly checking their social media, what strategies would you recommend to help them feel like they're still being informed about what's going on, especially in the fast-paced, situations that have been taking place,
Yeah.
while still protecting their mental health? And how do you model that good behavior for your children?
That's a very good question. So, there are three strategies that I'd like to discuss about staying informed without being overwhelmed. And then I'll take a moment to discuss how we can, protect these and discuss what we're trying to do. So,
Mm-hmm.
the first strategy is deciding how you want to get your news rather than letting the news find you. So, what I mean by that is we pick around one or two trusted sources. It could be official governmental channels, established news outlets, and we check these intentionally and not reactively, as well as we turn off breaking news notifications because every buzz
Mm-hmm.
on your phone is a little jolt to your nervous system, right? A second strategy would be setting news windows. So giving ourselves a specific time, maybe 15, 20 minutes, either in the late morning and once in the evening to check updates. We're doing it again intentionally. We're checking the updates and then we're closing it. And
Mm-hmm.
outside of those windows, we're redirecting ourselves. This is not about not being informed, it's about being intentional.
And not being over informed. I love that.
Exactly.
That's a great
Yeah.
strategy.
And lastly, is actually notice what we're looking for. So sometimes we're not actually looking for information, we're looking for reassurance. So is everything okay? And social media rarely gives us that. It gives us more uncertainty and more fear. So if you catch yourself doing that, that's a moment to just stop. Take a moment to ask yourself, what do I actually need right now? And sometimes the answer is to call someone you trust or to even just step outside and take that moment of, all right, what do I need? If it's reassurance, I'm not going to get that from social media. I could reach out to those around me, those in the similar situation, and have that conversation with them instead.
Yeah, it's almost looking for reaction, isn't it? You're looking for someone's reaction online. You're looking for maybe to find someone who agrees with you on reactions or how other people are reacting to it. And you're right,
Yeah.
it removes the human connection of connecting with family, friends, or loved ones
Yeah.
who could also share reactions with you. And you're still getting the benefits of a human interaction and a human connection rather than just the dopamine of a video scroll.
Definitely. It is very important to kind of remind yourself that not everything you're seeing as reactions also could be valid. So some
Hmm.
people, everyone takes the situations very differently as well. So reactions are going to be very different. So if someone that you see on social media is reacting much differently than you are, that could also play a role. So taking that moment to get that reassurance from those around you is going to give you a very different feel for the situation than getting it from social media.
I think these are amazing strategies, and I think it's someone might have to find the right one that works for them.
Yeah.
I think that the tricky thing is that we all deal with is that we're all addicted to our phones in some way or another. So
Oh,
it's
yeah.
almost, it is an addiction. It is that comfort of, I have a few minutes between meetings. I'm going to pick this up and just
Yep.
see what's going on the news. Or, I'm sitting in line picking up my child. I'm bored. I'm going to pick my phone up. So it's become a crutch for many of us. I'll just
Definitely.
speak for myself. It's become a boredom crutch. And so
Mm,
especially when times are difficult or there are crises happening, to feel like you have something right at your fingertips that
yeah.
you can go and learn more and see more and
Mhm.
understand
Yeah.
is enticing. So I think these
I
are great
yeah,
strategies to put
I
some
completely
limits in
agree.
place.
I
Yeah.
completely agree. We do, even if we're not intentional about it, like I said, during crisis, it's everywhere.
Mhm.
Every reel or post or anything that we're starting to see is going to be about the crisis, right? So once we notice that, all right, anytime I open my phone, I'm seeing this is a moment to be like, okay, I can open my phone and use it for a game that I want to play or for messaging someone, like using it for a different purpose because we know we want, like, it is something about boredom. We do use it all the time. It's
Mhm.
not realistic for me to come and say, we need to stop using our phones. But once we start to notice that every post, every reel has been about the specific situation, it's taking that step back of being like, okay, I need a break. This can't be the only thing I'm seeing today.
Yeah, and then it's taking that toll again on that emotional health and well-being, the connections that you have with your
Yeah.
family, your children, your loved ones, because
Mhm.
it's connecting in and it's taking control over your
Oh, yeah.
ability to do anything else or feel anything else. So
Yeah.
this has been so interesting. And I think there's a wider epidemic of people who are able to maybe even identify this behavior in others, but maybe have a harder time identifying it in themselves.
Mhm.
I would be curious for those who have become a little bit more self aware or are starting to feel some of those things, starting to feel dependent on their phone and their social media, who are maybe recognizing some of those mental health or well being impacts as a result of doom scrolling, too much social media time. What are some simple or realistic steps that they can take to reset their habits in general, their relationship with social media, with their phone, without feeling too disconnected or uninformed?
Yeah. Very, very good question. And every step that may be discussed is not limited to only what I'm talking about. Everyone can find their own little mix, their own little balance. But some realistic steps to reset without actually feeling disconnected is, I think, the biggest and most important one is starting small, not quitting cold turkey. So going from constant scrolling to no scrolling rarely works. And it really actually just creates more anxiety. Instead, what we want to shrink it gradually. So if you're checking your phone every 10 minutes, try every 30 minutes. You can even put like a timer to help you. If you've noticed that it's going to start, you're like you've opened your phone for the first time during the day, put a timer. So instead of you automatically opening it in 10 minutes, you're opening it at 30 minutes instead. Just like every habit, any situation that becomes a big part of our day, replace the habit. Don't just remove it. So scrolling is filling a need, right? For stimulation, for connection, and for control. So what we can do is ask ourselves, what else can meet that need? Even a 5-minute walk, a short phone call with a friend, making a cup of coffee, a cup of tea can interrupt that cycle and bring your nervous system down as well. We also, with the new technology evolving and everything that we have, we can use our phone's built in tools. So, screen time limit apps, timers, grayscale mode, these are just small but actually surprisingly effective friction points that interrupts that automatic scrolling, giving ourselves that limits as well. And checking in with our body. That's, I think, one of the most important part as well. Before you pick up the phone, pause for 2, 3 seconds and notice how you feel. And after you put it down, notice how you feel again. Over time, that simple practice will build awareness. And awareness is where change is going to start. Being aware of how we're feeling. Like if we notice every time we put our phone down, we're even more stressed, we're more anxious, we will start to feel like, okay, I need to do something about it.
These are great. These are actionable, they're practical. And I think it's so helpful to just remind any of our listeners that you're not alone in this. This is an issue that plagues everyone, and it's a challenge for everyone. And again, these things are designed to keep us on them and keep us engaged and keep us using them. So that's the purpose of these apps. That's the purpose of these phones. And so if you are doing that, it's just you're doing what it's designed to do, and there's no shame in it. But again, I think you really hit the nail on the head, Marianne, with the need for control and, seeking stimulation and seeking these things, especially in times of crisis, when you feel out of control, when you feel like you're not sure what's going on. And so just being very mindful, I think a lot of this came back to mindfulness behavior. Love that, checking in with yourself, seeing what is the purpose of me going on this phone, and then even being aware. I'm sure that if you asked me a year ago what I thought average social media use would be, it'd be very different. If you asked me 6 years ago what average social media use would be, it'd be very different. And even if you get one of those little weekly screen time reminders, that's one of those times where you look at that with a little bit of shame. So even timing the amount of time you spend on it, or setting a timer to say, I can't go on it again until this timer goes off, I think creates some triggers of awareness that you might not have seen before. And so I think those are just great tips.
Definitely. And we can get triggered by everything we're discussing today. Checking our screen time per week or per day could be like, oh, wow, can bring a sense of shame, like you were saying, or a sense of guilt, like, oh, I don't know, I don't want to be that way. But what I can also recommend, and this is also something that families with children can do, or teenagers, is creating tech-free zones at home. So, especially in bedrooms, during meals, right before bedtime, it isn't about being strict, but it's about protecting the children and the teenagers' sleep and their nervous system. So they will imitate us, right? They see us on our phones all the time. They see us being anxious, and us telling them, no, you're not allowed, can be a bit counterproductive. So if we
Mm-hmm.
have tech-free zones where in the kitchen or on the dining table, no one's allowed to use it, we're just calm. We are creating that calmness. We're modeling it. Kids notice what we do more than what we say. So that's going to help families with children, and it's going to help us as well, even those without children. Having tech-free zones where, okay, your phone is not entering the kitchen with you, or it's entering, but you're not using it. You're using it to be fully present in the kitchen, where it's like reading
Mm-hmm.
instructions for a recipe, anything like
Uh-huh.
that, right?
Listening to music while you're cooking or
Yeah,
something. Yeah, it's very
definitely.
different than
It's
having
very
your
different
social
than
media up at the table.
definitely.
I
Yeah.
think that's wonderful. I think it's important too to facilitate that conversation with your family or with, your loved ones around how do we want to use social media in this house? What do we feel like is safe and appropriate? That might hold a mirror up to things that people aren't aware of that they're doing, even if you have tech-free zones established. Those might break through certain days, if there is something going on, or your child might hold a mirror up to you and say, I don't think it's fair that I don't get screen time at this part of the day when I've seen you on your phone on, a social media site at that point. And so
Yeah.
I think it's great to be, as you said, establish those, behaviors that you want to see in your family and really create that open dialogue for setting some rules up. What are our rules in our family? When do we want to have screens down? When do we feel like it might be okay to have screens up? And even asking those questions to your partner or your children about, do you think I'm using social media too much or my screen too much? Are there times where you wish I wasn't on my screen? And those might enlighten you to some behaviors that you weren't even aware of yourself.
Definitely. And that actually brings me to the main thing I want people to take away from this is that staying informed and staying well are not opposites. So we can
Mhm.
do both, but it just takes a bit of being intention about our actions, about our behaviors as well. So, it can be very difficult. There's no doubt that what we're discussing today is actually a very heavy topic, but it can be manageable if there is open communication, there is validation that it's okay for us to want to do this, but staying informed again and staying well are not opposites.
That's a wonderful message. And this has been such an insightful conversation. I'm going to steal a lot of these ideas and utilize them myself. Thank you so much, Marianne, for joining me today and just sharing these amazing insights and strategies with us. To our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. For more information about how we can help people reclaim their lives and restore their well-being in times of crisis, you can visit our webpage at www.workplaceoptions.com. And until next time, thank you for listening and take care.